chilling, just finished eating some cereal after a busy day. How you guys doing? Sitting down, chilling as usual. Got my feet cupped up, all kinds of shit. uh, Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence. The negotiations ended with Crawford taking another fight. Crawford's going to be facing David Avanesyan on BLK. It looks like Errol Spence will be facing Keith Thurman on Showtime. I see people going in on Crawford as he's ducking, whatever. I really don't see it that way. Okay. David Avanesyan is a good fighter. I mean, he faced Lamont Peterson. He faced, uh, what's it, Mean Machine. Mean Machine stopped him. He faced Shane Mosley, beat Shane Mosley. He beat Josh Kelly, who was a promising undefeated fighter from the UK. So David Avanesyan is a solid fighter. Okay, he's solid. Um, and even in the fight with Mean Machine, he was doing well. He was boxing and doing well. Mean Machine ended up overwhelming him, but and stopping him, but he was doing well. Okay, he's a good boxer. He's got good experience, a lot of skill. Not a lot of skill, sorry, a lot of experience. He's faced some quality opposition over his time. So, people saying, Crawford, that's not a cherry pick. Let's just put it that way. And David Avanesyan's actually gotten better with time. He's gotten better with time. So, me personally, I think that it's a good fight. It's a good fight. It's not a bad fight. David Avanesyan is not as well known as say Keith Thurman, but he's a good fighter. All right. Is he a level fighter? No, but he's a good fighter. Now, what I just want to say, and pretty much wrap this up, because this is a stream, but it's not going to be long, is that I don't think it's fair to knock Terrence Crawford for wanting to go this route and collect some money and even possibly build a fight with Errol Spence even more. So there's more money in the pot. Terrence Crawford is used to getting at least 10 million to $20 million. We used to get that kind of money from Top Rank, and so you can't knock the dude. I don't care if you are a Spence fan or if you're a Crawford fan. You can't knock him for wanting to make sure he gets paid, because in the business of boxing, people's words become as mud, and then next thing you know, you're owed money and you never get that money ever. Now, guaranteed money means they have to pay you out. Promissory money. In this business, there's no such thing as promises. You got to put stuff to paper, so that you can get paid. So I can understand Crawford talking about, there was no guarantee that they would make that paper, and he never dealt with Al Heyman before, so it's understandable that he's like, hey man, I need my guarantee. I need some kind of guarantee. So I understand where he was coming from. Hopefully, he gets paid with BLK. Sometimes people promise a lot of money and then they can't pay, and that's a big problem with promoters and people who run events. So hopefully he gets paid something that he's supposed to get paid with the BLK fight. Um, BLK Prime, I think it's going to be on. But it's a great opportunity for David Avanesyan. And David Avanesyan will come motivated. And as I said before, he's a good fighter. He has already spoiled the party for two fighters already in their careers. There are Shane Mosley and Josh Kelly. Was a promising upcoming fighter. So David Avanesyan could be dangerous. He could be somebody that if you don't come correct, in other words, I don't consider this a tune-up fight. I don't. I consider this a legitimate fight that Terrence Crawford is going to take on. yes, the opponent is kind of like the level of opposition he has faced of late. You know, Kavalioskis had knocked out David Avanesyan, but David Avanesyan is a much better fighter than that fight would indicate. He is actually an underrated fighter. You know, he to me he's on the level of a Sergey Lipinets, except Sergey Lipinets is more of a body puncher. David's more of a boxer, right? So just so y'all know, he a solid fighter. Uh, is he on the level of Terrence Crawford or Keith Thurman? Or not quite. I don't think he's quite there. He'd be like a good opponent for Jerome Boots Ennis or Virgil Ortiz. You know, um, so that's the kind of level of opposition that Terrence Crawford is facing. And if you're gonna get paid, Ninja, why not? Now, if Terrence Crawford don't come correct, you're gonna have a hard night with David Avanesyan because David Avanesyan can box and he is effective. Okay, and he's gotten better. So even though you say, okay, he got knocked out by a Mean Machine, sure, sure, sure. That was early in his career, by the way. And he hasn't been knocked out since. I think he lost one other fight. I can't remember which one it was. But he's improved by leaps and bounds as a fighter, and he's been seasoned, and he's an experienced fighter. So if you, I'm telling you, man, these underdogs these days, these underdogs, they coming. And you know, if he can get it, think about it this way: if he can, you know, he's going to be motivated. David Avanesyan got that call. David Avanesyan is motivated. This is an opportunity of a lifetime because he has never fought for a world title. He's been an interim champion, but he's never fought for a legitimate world title. So this is his first legitimate world title shot. You think this guy's going to throw it to waste? You think this is the opportunity of a lifetime? So he's going to seize that with his hand, foot. He's going to be very motivated. So if Terrence Crawford doesn't come correct, this dude could topple the apple cart. I know Terrence Crawford's an excellent boxer. He'll never come incorrect. He'll never come. But the things he did with Mean Machine, he can't afford to get dropped. You understand what I'm saying? This guy, David Avanesyan, he finishes guys. You know, he's not as big a name as Keith Thurman and those guys, but he is. He's getting his flowers now. He's getting a chance to go up against Terrence Crawford because he does have. He's not great in any one area, but he's really well rounded as a boxer. That's what I mean to say. Will Terrence get him out of there? Probably. But my point anyway is you're gonna have very motivated David Avanesyan. You're gonna have a David Avanesyan chomping at the bit to get this opportunity. So that's going to bring out an even better performance from him than he would normally have. So just remember that. Because he's gonna be facing arguably one of the top pound for pound fighters in the world. He's definitely gonna be out for that. This is what fighters live for. They live for these opportunities. So I expect this fight to be one in which David Avanesyan tests Terrence Crawford at a certain point, might even drop him. And I know that sounds weird to hear, but it could happen in this fight. And then y'all will be like, "Oh, Terrence, he don't look good in that fight. What was he trying to do? Try to promote?" And be like, he looked vulnerable, right? But don't get it twisted. Like I said before, I know it sounds weird that I'm saying this, but David Avanesyan is better than people think. Okay, he's a much better fighter than people think. And what y'all need to do is go watch his recent fights. Okay, and that still is not going to show how much he's progressed as a fighter because we haven't seen him in a while on the big stage or on any biggish stage. But he's a good fighter. He's a good fighter. Okay, they turned down the Jerome Ennis fight, but they definitely going to take the Terrence Crawford fight. But I'm telling you right now, uh, he's a good quality fighter. Now, like I said before, he's more of a fighter for a guy like Jerome Ennis or Virgil Ortiz, to be honest with you. But he's been around the game for a while. He's a contemporary of Terrence Crawford, more or less. So that's a good fight. I'm not gonna say it's a bad fight. That's not a bad fight. Is it as good a fight as Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford? Hell no. Is it as good a fight as Errol Spence versus Keith Thurman? No. But it's a good fight nonetheless. It's a solid fight. That's a solid opponent. That's like Mayweather versus Berto, or Mayweather versus let me see what else. It's like Mayweather versus Berto, except Berto don't have the skills that David Avanesyan has. Or Mayweather versus, yeah, I might put it there. Mayweather versus Robert Guerrero. It's kind of like a fight like that. Not in quality, but in terms of level of opponent. Robert Guerrero was tough as nails. Guy coming off a big win. David Avanesyan came off a big win against. Shout out to Jason William. He came off a big win off of what you call that kid? The kid he upset. He knocked out. Right. So he's kind of coming off a big win as well himself. I forgot the kid's name from UK. So it's a good fight. It is a good fight. Now, like I said before, what y'all ain't realizing, y'all ain't factoring this stuff in. These underdogs alive. This is gonna be a live underdog. I'm telling y'all. Y'all need to go do your homework on David Avanesyan. He's gonna be live. He gonna be ready. Okay. He got bullseye on Terrence Crawford's chest and on his back. He's gonna be gunning for Terrence Crawford. He's definitely going to bring his A game. Okay. The question is Terrence Crawford going to overlook him? Hell no. I don't think Terrence overlooks any fighter. But he has to box properly because David Avanesyan, even though he's not the biggest hitter in the world, he gets the job done when he needs to. And he is a very good finisher. The one thing about David Avanesyan, he didn't have a whole set of knockouts or nothing. Josh Kelly was the guy that he stopped. But if he gets you hurt, he will finish you. That's David Avanesyan. So there's certain things about. He's a Russian fighter, by the way, if y'all don't know. So there's certain. He's kind of crafty. Um, he's not really a tremendous combination puncher and all of that unless he's finishing you. But if he gets you hurt, he's gonna finish you. He's not gonna do like Green. You see how Green Machine got Terrence Crawford hurt, and then he sort of kind of Terrence Crawford was able to overwhelm him in a shootout, and he gets Terrence Crawford hurt. He's gonna finish Terrence Crawford. That's David Avanesyan, but he's more of a boxer type. Now Terrence is probably a much better boxer than David Avanesyan. There are levels to the sport, but the thing with David is very consistent. David is very determined. Uh, he mixes his aggression with his defense. His defense is not the best defense in the world, but he mixes his aggression with his defense. From what I remember of David shocked us twice. We thought Shane Mosley was going to mow over David Avanesyan, and he comprehensively beat Shane Mosley's ass. I think there are only about a handful of people who comprehensively beat Shane Mosley. Floyd, Winky Wright, Vernon Forrest, and David Avanesyan. I think the fight was kind of close, but David Avanesyan beat Shane Mosley. Um, who else beat Shane Mosley comprehensively? I think that kid from down under from Australia, but that was at 154. I forgot what his name is. You know who else? But he didn't get a decision. That's closer though. Sergey, shit, what is his name? The Latin rattlesnake. Forgot what his name is. Sergey Mora, I think. Sergio Mora. So I think there's a handful of guys that beat Shane Mosley comprehensively. You knew that they beat him. Um, Even with Canelo, even though he beat Shane Mosley, was very competitive. But David Avanesyan, it wasn't as competitive. And it shows the caliber of fighter because Shane Mosley was on a roll. He was knocking out people, beating people. Shane was going back towards the 154 title. David Avanesyan he fought at 154 as well as 147. So that's another thing. David Avanesyan, I think 154 for 147. Or is it 147? I can't remember. But anyway, David Avanesyan is good enough a fighter. I think it was 147. He's a good enough a fighter to be in that conversation for a world title. So this is his first legitimate world title shot, not secondary world title. He's had interim titles. He's been like he's had secondary titles, but he's never got a shot at a world title. So this is his opportunity of a lifetime, which is going to be presented to him by Terrence Crawford. Keith Thurman versus Errol Spence is, even though Keith Thurman's a bigger name, because Keith Thurman showed his core. Sometimes he had certain weaknesses because people could go to his body. it looked like Errol Spence would be able to take him out. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen because Keith is training his ass off and he's working his core like nobody's business. So if Keith comes in there in tip top shape in his core, it don't matter what Errol do because I've seen Sean Porter go at him. I've seen Danny Garcia go at Keith Thurman and couldn't get him out of there. So Keith's a guy. Again, don't underestimate no damn fighter. If Keith gets into ridiculous shape, it really doesn't matter how much Errol goes to the body. Because Keith's a big 147 pounder. Big. And Errol breaks bones and stuff and all that. But how is he going to do that if this guy's going in and out on him? I'm pot shotting him and stuff like that. Keith's a tricky customer. Don't forget that now. So, boxing's a complicated thing. It depends on how well Errol prepares, how well Keith prepares for that fight. Because remember, Errol's not wasn't looking. He didn't have a target. He never had a target on Keith. He had a target on Terrence. He had a target on other fighters. He didn't ever plan on fighting Keith Thurman, right? And it's an interesting fight. And with respect to David Avanesyan versus Terrence Crawford, the question really is, how is Crawford going to look against David Avanesyan? And you don't ever overlook David Avanesyan. He will spoil the party. If you overlook him, he will spoil the party. He is a party spoiler. he tends to do that. He tends to show up and mess up the programs. So this is an interesting fight. That's what I'm trying to tell y'all. And it's not as cut. It's not as open and shut as it looks. Especially coming off the fact that Terrence is not facing Errol, and Errol's not facing Terrence. Now they're facing somebody else, and it's kind of like with what happened with uh, uh, Hasim Rahman Jr. over the weekend. Hasim Rahman Jr. is a superior boxer to uh, 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 the NFL UFC fighter that fought him. All right, and on any given Saturday, Hasim Rahman would have beaten this guy. Okay, Greg Hardy. Okay, but on that particular Saturday, and Greg Hardy's extremely explosive for a guy that big. He's extremely explosive, right? We know Rahman's not as explosive as he is, but Rahman was picking him off and all of that, and he got hit with a counter right off of his left hook that he was throwing. He got hit with a counter right, and then Greg Hardy just jumped on him. Kind of like Greg Hardy's actually better than Tommy Tommy Morrison's son. Uh, uh, Tommy Morrison's son. Now Tommy Morrison's son, they said stopped Hasim Rahman, but he didn't really stop Hasim Rahman. Hasim Rahman showed us he has a hell of a chin. He's very strong. Because he went the distance with Greg Hardy, and he was throwing hands on Greg Hardy, even down the stretch. He was throwing hands on Greg Hardy. But I hope that Hasim Rahman Jr. he learns a lesson from this, and let me explain what I mean. One, they were a little too confident going into that fight. He is a superior, obviously, he's a superior boxer. He showed it in round one. He showed it at spots in round 3 and 2. I closed the show pretty nicely in round 4 as well. But the problem with him was, he's looking now at this guy, as if he's an inferior guy to him because he's coming from UFC, NFL. But he never looked at the attributes of the kid, the explosiveness, and just the size. But even his size is explosiveness, right? And how quick his feet are. And he was able to catch Hasim with counters, at least when he dropped him and stuff like that. Hasim's kind of started to get smart to it, and he was counter punching him pretty nicely, catching and shooting pretty nicely down the stretch. But by then, the damage had already been done. It's such a short fight. If it was a 12-rounder and Rahman was in great condition, that would have been an interesting fight. But it was a 4-rounder. Anyway, the race is not for the swift. It is for those who persevere to the end, even though Greg Hardy had a great head start on Hasim in round 2. I would have loved to see that fight be an 8-rounder or something like that, but I don't think Hardy could have made 8 rounds. But that's where Hasim probably would have taken over and probably stopped him. But with my point being, you've seen the underdog pull the upset. We've seen it many, many times now since the Anthony Joshua Andy Ruiz fight. We've seen the underdog upset the cart. So why am I saying this? I'm saying this to say no one is safe in this game, right? No one is safe in boxing. That what makes boxing so interesting now more than ever is the fact that we had guys like George Kambosos upset the apple cart with Teofimo Lopez. We had Teofimo Lopez upset the apple cart with Lomachenko. Uh, we have had upset after upset this year. Okay, you know, Alicia Baumgartner upset. I forgot what her name is. Right. My point being, no one is safe. So you have to really work your ass off. You got to prepare very well for the opponents that you're about to face because it's a tricky situation in this game. You know. Um. So that's what I'm just saying. Now, who is likely to win these fights? Errol Spence is probably going to beat Keith Thurman. Terrence Crawford is probably going to beat David Avanesyan. But you guys, you must do your homework on these fighters. Trust me, you must go and watch them. David Avanesyan, what kind of fighter is he? Right? Who did he beat in his career? You look at Keith Thurman, you know Keith Thurman's career, and you know what kind of fighter he is. You know, kind of in and out fighter, unpredictable at times. You know, big, strong fighter, good punch. You know, so you bear these things in mind when you're thinking about Errol Spence, who's a body puncher. He likes to go to the body a lot, but he's a decent boxer. You know, very fundamentally sound, great work rate. You look at the clash of styles. You look at the in and out style versus the, cut off the ring, try to get you, walk you down, but I can box off the back foot if necessary, change levels, etc. You know, you look at the different kinds of styles, and then from there you're saying, okay, is this an easy fight? Really? Is this? Because David Avanesyan, he and the dude, I mean, he been stopped, what, how many times? I think 3 times in his career. But even though a guy gets stopped 3 times in his career, you got to look at the situation. What was the circumstances under which he was stopped? And has he been stopped of late? And if he hasn't been stopped of late, you can't look at that. Because a lot of people think, oh, this guy got stopped early in his career. He got stopped here or he got stopped there. Okay, let's take a Manny Pacquiao, for example. Manny Pacquiao got stopped how many times in his career? About 3 times, right? I mean, shit. That don't mean you going to knock him out. You get what I'm saying? So, you have to look at the fighter, what kind of fighter they are, what's their style like, and then you look at the styles, how they measure up. You also have to look at, are they improving as a fighter? Have they been looking better and better fight after fight? So because it could be just development. Sometimes a fighter gets stopped early in their career, or I mean, Henry Armstrong was stopped in his very first fight. Okay, so what does that mean? So you have to look at these things because you think, oh, there's a blueprint to stop this fighter. No, not necessarily. Okay, it depends on the fighter's development. It depends on a number of factors when you're talking about boxing. So that's what I got to say. But I do want to say that I think that Terrence Crawford having this plan B set up there is what typical boxers do. When they're in negotiations, the reason why Terrence Crawford is talking the way he's talking because they're in negotiations. So Terrence Crawford, in order to negotiate, he's like, when you're making a fight, the guy will like, take it or leave it. Be like, oh, leave it then. Shit. Because I got something, I got other opponents I can face. That's what they do in negotiations. That way you don't hear fighters talk too much about who they want to face next or whatever when they're going into negotiations, because in negotiations it's fierce. And one guy would say, well, if you want to really negotiate with me, well, this is what you got to do. You got to do this. And he'd be like, hey, man, I don't have to do this, because you may have been an A star. Terrence Crawford was the A side when he was with Top Rank. Errol Spence was the A side when he was when he's with PBC. So obviously, Terrence Crawford's not just going to be bullied into doing X, Y, or Z and be like, take it or leave it, or no, I don't care how nicely they speak. You have to take this. You're not going to have no guarantee or some kind of shit like that. You can't go with that. See what I'm saying? So, and he's used to being the A side. So when you find two A side personalities like Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather. Negotiations are very difficult to kind of go through sometimes. Even if the fighters want to face each other, they want a fair shake. If I'm used to getting $20 million or a $15 million, $10 million guarantee, right? I'm used to that. Then you come and you tell me we can't guarantee shit for you. No, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna take that. Obviously, right? And we're getting into a big fight so I can make big money and I make sure I secure my future, right? I don't know how many big fights I'm gonna have, so this is one of them. I'm gonna make sure I'm okay at the end of this. I'm comfortable. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing wrong with that. See, we as fans, we are looking at it only purely from a entertainment perspective. Once upon a time, I'm gonna say this. Once upon a time, boxers were stupid. They weren't business savvy. They let their managers, they let the business people do it, and they just boxed and fought, right? It's not so anymore. The boxers have sense. If they're running their own careers, if they are their own boss now, they get to sit at the table and do what they need to do. And they're not about to be, you know, mistreated at the table. Some of you come out here and say, "But Devin Haney, Devin Haney went across my Cabooses." Listen, first of all, Devin Haney's his own boss. Second of all, Devin Haney agreed to those terms going across there because he had been managing his own business and had relationships with other people in other businesses and had worked with PBC. He had worked with DAZN and Matchroom. Okay, and now he was going across to Top Rank. He had had experience working with different companies, being his own boss. That's why Devin Haney could call the shots like he did and agreed to terms that Kambosos and his team put forward. Because Devin Haney is and has been his own boss for a very long time. Okay? Devin Haney is different to Gervonta Tank Davis, who's now on his own. He's now his own boss, calling his own shots. That's why you see Gervonta Davis now going into fights that we would have loved to see him fight because he's now his own boss. He's not just boxing and yes, GTD Promotions was there, but he was allowing Al Heyman, Floyd Mayweather, and Leonard Ellerbe to pick his fights and who he was going to face. But now he's his own boss. He gets to determine who he wants to face, where he wants to face him, and how he wants to face him. All right? So Crawford's in that position. Errol Spence allows his team and which is his advisors and the people around him to sort of, they come collectively, and even though he may want to fight, they come collectively to talk over the situation and they work it out. He doesn't, as Terrence said, he doesn't even see Errol Spence at the table. Al Heyman, who is his advisor, comes to the table. He doesn't see Errol Spence there because Al Heyman goes there on his behalf. Okay? And then Al will report back to him or whatever. So you have to understand that's how negotiations go. Even with Pacquiao versus Mayweather, you know, at no point in time was Pacquiao or Mayweather at the tables simultaneously. It usually was hashed out with Al and Bob. Al, Bob, the CBS guy, they were the ones hashing out the agreement and the details. Terrence is part of the details and everything. He gets to be at the table because he wants to be there. You see, when it comes to Floyd let Al handle his business, but now Floyd works with other people besides just Al in his exhibition life. So all I'm saying to you guys is that in boxing, the fighters are getting more business savvy. There are people who work on their behalf and they report back to them. And so you have to understand that that's just a part of the process. Does that mean that Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence will never happen? Absolutely not. We know after Terrence fights David Avanesyan, he's probably going to fight Errol Spence. And we know Errol Spence, after he fights Keith Thurman, is probably going to fight Terrence Crawford. It's just that these two fighters, they're still hashing out the details. Do they want to face each other? Absolutely. Absolutely want to face each other. It just makes for a bigger anticipation. Hopefully, if they both perform well, then we will get to see that Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence fight, especially if they perform well. If they can give a great performance. But you guys need to understand who their opponents are and what this means for their opponents. Think about this. Keith Thurman's getting an opportunity now to get 3 of the 4 belts. You guys got to put it in perspective. This is very important to understand. Keith Thurman's getting an opportunity to get 3 of the 4 belts. He's never had 3 of the 4 belts. He's had 2. He's never had 3. So think about this. You think Keith Thurman is going to be going in there not motivated? He's going to be motivated because Keith Thurman wants to be undisputed. He wants to be the head honcho. So he's going to do everything in his power to train and be ready. David Avanesyan has never had a shot at a world title. Never. This is his opportunity. Do you think he's not going to be motivated for this fight? Y'all have to think. This is important to understand because the opponent pushes the fighter to be better. If Terrence Crawford goes in there and mows over David Avanesyan, y'all won't think much about it. But what if David Avanesyan denies Terrence Crawford that opportunity to mow him over? Makes it the full 12 and makes it competitive as shit. Y'all gonna criticize Terrence Crawford. Oh, you couldn't do nothing today. But y'all forget that the opponent is motivated. They're gonna put on a performance like they never put on before. Why? Because they're motivated. This is the man's shot at a world title. Akent's one of the best boxers in the world. You think he's not motivated? This is what they live for. This is what boxing's all about. Keith Thurman's going to get an opportunity to get 3 of the 4 belts and a chance at unifying with, say, Terrence Crawford or whoever wins against Terrence Crawford versus David Avanesyan for the undisputed championship of the world, which is what his goal was. You think Keith Thurman's not going to be motivated like shit? Come on, peoples. This is boxing. And y'all always count out the fighters. Oh, Terrence Crawford versus David Avanesyan. Oh, Terrence going to move over him. And if he don't, well, that ain't going to look good. Oh, yeah, Errol's going to beat up Keith Thurman to the body. He's going to get him out of there. Well, here's the thing. Keith Thurman's going to train his ass off to make sure his body's in order. Because Keith Thurman's not going out like that. Okay? So what y'all have to realize is that the underdog got weak. And if you slip up in this game, if you slip up a little bit, you will be replaced. You will be replaced. That's boxing. And then y'all gonna hear about the upset, the big upset. You know what I'm saying? Because these guys are coming, man. And yeah, of course, if Crawford's at his best and Errol's at his best, we expect them to win. But it never always works out like that in boxing. That's all I'm saying. You get a shocker or two. So I hope that these guys, by sort of delaying this fight, I hope that Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford happens because anything can happen in this boxing game. Tank is taking on a fighter who Hector, what is his name? Hector Garcia. He's taking on Hector Garcia. I hope he ain't underestimating Hector Garcia because that ain't no tune-up fight. Yeah, Hector Garcia will be moving up to lightweight to face him. So what? So what? That ain't no tune. I'm telling y'all that ain't no tune-up fight. It's not a 50-50 fight, but definitely I got Tank with the edge in that fight. But Hector Garcia is tough, southpaw, take a shot, has good technique, has been well schooled. And Hector Garcia comes into that fight like he did against what's the kid name? Little B-Hop, prime time. It's gonna be a hell of a fight. But I expect Tank to pull it through. If Ryan Garcia takes on George Kambosos, that's an interesting fight. Yes, Teofimo Lopez was able, not Teofimo, Devin Haney was able to outbox Kambosos. But see, the difference between Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney is Ryan's more robotic, more stiff. And while he has quick feet, he mostly plants his feet to get his power. Devin Haney doesn't plant his feet as much, and he's got Devin Haney moves a different way to Ryan Garcia. Uh, so Devin Haney's movement is different. I'm not gonna say the details of his movement. You guys can go watch it. I know what I mean. I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to give Ryan any tips. I want Cambosis to have as much of an advantage in that fight as possible if that fight ever happens. Cambosis be training his ass off anyway. Um, Cambosis is also a tricky customer because of his movement. He's deceptive. There's a lot of deceptive things he does. Um, so both of them are fast. Cambosis is very quick. Throws combinations. He's very fast, lightning hands. Doesn't have the kind of power that Ryan Garcia has. But Cambosis is a guy, you slip up on Cambosis, he will knock you down. He's very aggressive, closes the distance very well. Um, there's a couple things I want to say, but I'm not going to say them. So suffice it to say, Ryan Garcia versus George Cambosis is an interesting fight. Now, of course, some people are going to say, because they're not really analyzing it, and of course, there's many different ways that fight could go. Many people are going to say, well, Ryan Garcia will knock out George Cambosis. I don't have that foregone conclusion. In fact, I'll say this. I don't even know if Tank Davis could knock out George Cambosis. That guy has a chin of iron. And even when he gets knocked down, he recuperates rather quickly. On top of that, his counters in the middle of trades, like if you going in for the kill against George Cambosis, you might end up being killed because he does counterpunch very well, especially with guys closing the distance. He loves to counterpunch you when you're doing that. Devin's different because I'm not going to talk about Devin too much because I don't want to do. But the evidence is there on the screen of what Devin does. And Devin's special. Is a special fighter. Like I said before, Devin's a special fighter. All right? And it all has to do with his movement. That's all I'm going to say about that. Like if Teofimo Lopez goes up against Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez is going to have a hard time against Devin Haney. In fact, any fighter who goes up against Devin Haney is going to have a hard time because of how Devin Haney moves in the ring. See, it's one thing. See, you know, I'm not saying it's the easiest thing in the world to see on the television screen, but the television screen is very deceptive in the sense that you can't see how much distance Devin Haney covers very quickly. If you're ringside, you'll see it much more, and how fast he is, and also how he can close the distance very quickly, and also get back out of range very quickly. And how he does it is the thing that makes him special. I don't want to say too much more about it. He looks a little bit awkward and a little bit clumsy from afar, but when you are actually closer to the ring, you see how shockingly quick he is and how much ground he covers very, very quickly. And he does it. I don't want to say anything more about it. I just wanted to say that. I'll leave you guys to try and figure out. When you go and watch the tape of Devin Haney, you'll see what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, if you're watching it, just watching tape, you're not seeing it live because you can't get the depth perception. See, on tape, everything comes out 2D. If you were seeing it in 3D, you had a virtual reality 3D glasses, it would make more sense what I'm saying. But if you're just seeing it in 2 dimensions, you really can't get the depth perception, so you don't understand how quickly he has covered distance. Ryan doesn't cover distance that quickly. Let's just put it that way. So, because Devin Haney's long, and because he's so long, it looks like he's not covering a whole lot of distance, but he's actually covering a lot of distance. Okay? And the way how he does it and what he does, I don't know how to explain this without giving away something. I don't want to give away anything because I don't want these guys training. It's in plain view, but if you don't know boxing, well, too bad. You're not gonna follow what I'm saying. It's just sad because I really want to tell you, but I'm not gonna tell you. So I always said the feet are the key to boxing. Haney, Haney does it in a different way, but he still does it. Roy Jones Jr. does it in a different way to Devin Haney, how Devin Haney does it. Floyd does it more like Roy. Bevo does it kind of like he does it in a slightly different way to Roy. Roy moves more like a duck. Floyd and Pacquiao, they do some interesting things. And then you got Bevo, who kind of does a less flashy version of that. It's all in the feet. That's all I'm gonna say about that. I ain't gonna say no more. But it's all in the feet. You gotta watch the feet. Ryan doesn't do it. So that's the special thing about Devin. Tank does it a little bit. He does it a little bit. But Tank sort of, again, Tank and Ryan, they're all about power. Teofimo, same thing. They're all about power. So you're going to find that they sit down more on their punches and they sit down more moving around. But Tank has it. Tank could do it, and he does it on occasion. He does it. You know, y'all don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm so sorry about that. But if you think about what I'm saying, and then you just go back and watch the video, you'll see what I'm talking about, and it's all to do with the feet. Haney has it, and Haney covers ground like nobody's business. And when I say covers ground, I don't think y'all understand what I'm talking about. I can't say no more, but I want to say more, but I can't say no more right now. Which is sad because I really want to tell y'all what it is, but I can't. I prefer to just keep quiet about it because I don't want nobody running drills on that. They're gonna run drills on that shit. Once they know what it is, they're gonna run drills on it. I just don't want nobody running no drills on that one. You know what I mean? But there's some things Devin does with his feet that's just, I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. And you only see those things with Roy Jones Jr. does it a lot. You look at Sugar Ray Leonard did a little bit of it. In fact, he looked more like Leonard when he does his stuff. You can tell his father's a big Sugar Ray Leonard fan. Um, you go watch. Keep my mouth shut. I don't want to say no more. I don't want to say no more. All right. Just suffice it to say, some of the problems and challenges that Devin poses to Kambosos will not be there when Ryan fights Kambosos. I can tell you that for a fact. Because Ryan doesn't do it like Devin. Devin. Like I said before, you have to have. It's not just about having. You know, it's not just about having educated feet. That's all I'm gonna say about that. And Ryan does things a little bit different to how Devin does. Don't get me wrong, Ryan's a hell of a boxer, but uh, he does certain things which I don't know how I have to say this, but I'm gonna say it. I don't want to say too much. Could freeze him in space. You could freeze Ryan in space. You could freeze him up because of uh, how he moves. Yeah. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But you could freeze him. In fact, Luke Campbell freezed him. That's how he dropped him. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right. Movement is such an intricate part of boxing. Right. So Cambosis kind of did a version of what Luke Campbell did to Ryan Garcia to Teofimo Lopez. Right? In fact, I'm gonna show y'all something else. I want to show y'all something else. When Ryan Garcia, remember this is 140 pounds. When Ryan Garcia was fighting Javier Fortuna, of course Javier Fortuna is southpaw. Fortuna caught Ryan with a straight left, if you do remember, a kind of looping left, right on the bottom. Ryan took it well, but he still had to step back. And ask yourself this question, because Javier probably did it instinctively, but ask yourself this question. Why was he able to do that? Why was he able to land that clean shot on Ryan? I'm gonna just let you know one time. It has to do with the movement of Ryan, particularly with his feet. That's all I'm gonna give y'all. That's the hint. And if he doesn't address that issue, it's kind of like with Canelo, where Canelo has all the skill in the world, but he don't have that foot cardio. Ryan has foot cardio. He has a lot of skill, but he still has a problem. And you can freeze him up. You could freeze up Ryan. You could keep him still for long enough to land your money punch on him with all the skill he has. And it lies within his feet. I'm not going to say any more than that. I've said enough. But that's what I've noticed. So, Ryan versus George Campbell. About why he's able to be so effective against certain fighters. And you look at where he gets himself in position, how he positions himself. So this is why, it's a shock to many people that he beat Teofimo Lopez. But if he was to fight Teofimo Lopez again, he'd probably beat him again because of how he gets into position and how he freezes up his opponent. I'm not gonna give away everything, so I'm gonna use exactly that term. How he freezes up his opponent. Right? Boxing's a thinking man's sport, and Kambosos does think. I'll give you that. So that's what I got to say for now about Terrence and Errol Spence. I don't blame any of them. Am I disappointed the fight didn't happen? Yes, it was an opportunity. You never know what could happen. Boxing, you just never know. So when you try to make a fight marinate, sometimes it backfires royally. And the opponents that Crawford and Errol have are not to be just lightly dismissed. You have to take them extremely seriously because if you slip up, the opportunity to have that big money fight decreases. You can't afford to take an L now. And you can't just win. You have to win in a fashion in which people say, all right, let's see Crawford versus Spence, and more people want to see the fight. So in a way, this risk versus reward, we'll see if it was worth their time to face these two opponents, and if they will be able to convince the fans that they really want to see them against each other. Shout out to Jason Williams, who said in the chat, he said, hold on one second. He said, I enjoy unbiased boxing talk. Catch you next time. Peace. Shout out to you, Jason, and thanks for passing through. So yeah, what you need in the building, you know how it is. I again love boxing, so that's why I'm talking about this. Of course, I make my part of my living is on these streamings. So if you want to also support this channel, you can through PayPal. I'll put the link in the chat or wherever after. But yeah, love boxing. And I just thought I would talk about this topic because I didn't talk about Crawford and Spence and their back and forth and all of that. The back and forth is just to get your guys' interest. So everybody's been talking about Crawford and Spence. Everybody's been talking right now about Javante Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia. Those two fights, you're hearing lots of talk about them, and that's good because that gets more people interested in the fights, and the fights hopefully generate more cash, more money off of that. So this is a good thing. Um, even Jake Paul and all of these I call them sideshow fights. Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva and all the stuff that happened. Hassan Rahman versus Greg Hardy and just the other cards. Even the exhibition fights. Manny Pacquiao is supposed to have an exhibition at the end of this year. Floyd versus Deji and so on. These actually make boxing fun because what you guys need to do is realize you're fans of the sport. And yes, you can be a pure fan of the sport as well. But all boxing is fun. And to see people get into the ring, some people who, like you and me, we're not professional boxers. We're not professional fighters. And go into the ring and participate in boxing is even more fun because, like I said before, and some people come from combat sports and they go into boxing. We have a lot of MMA fighters now who box professionally. And that's, again, a good thing, you know. The more people box, the more people get into boxing, the more we have boxing entertainment, is the more the sport lives. So nothing really can kill the sport if we're getting a lot of more people involved in the sport. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, and have fun. You're fans. Have fun with the sport. One of the things about boxing I love, and that's why I'm not really an MMA fan. That's not my thing. I love boxing, and as you guys know, I box a little bit. I love boxing for the discipline that it brings, and also I love the fact that it's such a nuanced art as well. It's an art where you're hurting other people. Yes, okay, that's part of the goal, but it's also science behind it. And when you learn that science, I'm not saying that you. I mean, you have to have a certain mindset to do this. Okay, if you're going to do boxing, not everybody can do it. Okay, and then not everybody can do it at a semi-professional level versus a professional level. It takes a certain mindset to want to do this. Okay, but having said that, there are also a lot of people who view it. So if you don't do it, there's a lot of people who watch it. Now, the people who behave very primitive and very stupid and dumb and guttural, like if they're drunk all the time, those people, they don't understand the sport, but they're fans. So you have to let it be. But they don't understand the sport. Most of those people want to see knockouts and they're all about who's coward and whatever. To me, that's kind of irrelevant, right? But the people who really love the sport, they go to the fights, they participate in every single event, they talk boxing in the barbershop and stuff like that. Those people are really awesome. Chris Ario, I haven't seen you in a long time, bro. How are you doing? It's my brother from another mother. Fun people, that's what boxing's all about. Remember, it's a fun sport, meaning it's for us fans to, if we want to argue, debate, or laugh, talk. It's just it's kind of like American football or soccer or baseball or cricket. It's a sport in that respect because we go into the barber shop, we talk about this, we talk about that, we talk about this, we talk about that. It's a barbershop conversation kind of thing, right? That's what makes it fun. And so we as fans, yes, sir, we talk about it sometimes analytically, seriously, on different levels and different planes. We have fun with each other. We tease each other and stuff. But ultimately, in the end, boxing, what makes boxing beautiful is the fact that it's all about the dedication to the sport and how far a person could go. Some of you guys know some of these boxers. You grew up with some of these boxers, these famous boxers, and so you've seen where they came from and where they reached. And some of them weren't the greatest boxers in the amateurs. In fact, in their pro careers, it wasn't all that. But then they got an opportunity of a lifetime. They prepared for it, and they got launched into the spotlight. And then from there on in, they kept on going. And they was working hard all the time, but it's just they got that opportunity to for the world to see them. And I'm just saying, uh, 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 Avanesyan, David Avanesyan, he been toiling for a long time, y'all. He been around for a long time in this boxing game and never really got the shine that he deserves. So hopefully, in this Crawford versus Avanesyan fight, Avanesyan will exceed all our expectations and actually give Terrence Crawford a run for his money. I mean, a real run for his money. I mean, test him thoroughly. I hope that happens because David hasn't gotten a shot at a world title until now, and he's been in this game for quite a while. I mean, maybe 12, 15 years he's been a pro. So it's been a long time for him to get his title shot. It's taken him a very long time, very difficult journey, some losses. He's learned a lot of things, a lot of lessons along the way. He's a veteran of the sport, and now he's getting his shot at the WBO title for the first time in his career. I mean, you think this guy's going to just wuss out? Hell no. Hell no. You know? The thing about boxing is that there's more than Errol and all those famous boxers. There are very good fights out there around the world. Exactly, my brother. And some hell of a fights too. Some crazy fights. You know, there was a this Brazilian fighter on the zone, woman, and man, she put on a performance on the zone. And you know, there's so many great fighters worldwide. You know, that just don't get the shine. You know, we know so many of them. There's just so many of them, right? Ava is killing everyone here. I know, I know. She's bad. She's a bad. Yeah. So you know, and it's good to discover new people as well, and new talent and new abilities. And you know, everybody always feels America, 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 and it's just not. Man, she a killer though. She a killer, bro. Dude, she looked like a fullback. She looked strong as hell. I mean, and she was fighting like, oh my God, I didn't see no woman fight a fight like that. Shit. I ain't never seen nobody fight like that. So coordination's sick, and she can box. I mean, oh my God, man, she crazy. Yeah. So I mean, and that's my thing. My point is, you know, when you see the abilities and skills of these fighters, he carried all your comrades. Oh shit. Damn. Man, all I'm saying is, if you love boxing, now you know, I know that the average fan likes a bang up sort of situation where people just throwing hands. I don't believe in that. I believe it's sweet science. I believe it. I love to see proper boxing. And if y'all throwing hands, you know, when y'all got your D and everything going together, you got your game going, and y'all still throwing hands. Oh hell yeah. You know what I mean? But I really love the fact that this sport, man, is doing so well. You know, uh, Crawford versus Spence probably won't happen this year, which is kind of sad. But the amount of good fights we had this year, my goodness, almost every single weekend we have really good fights. This upcoming weekend we're supposed to have, I think, at the end of because this upcoming weekend is the end of the month or close to the end of the month. So we're looking at a big fight coming up. Big fight coming up. Ugh. I'm trying to remember what it is. It hasn't crossed my mind, but it's a big fight coming up this weekend. You can't miss this weekend. This weekend is gonna be great. You know, and we've seen so many good fights. I mean, we see Clarissa go up against what's my girl's name? She put on a hell of a fight too with Clarissa. Shit, I forgot what her name is now. The knockout artist. You know, but man, man, it's been a great year of boxing, and I'm looking forward to the remaining fights that close out the year. Hopefully, we get Garcia versus well, we're gonna get that, but I think that's 2023. Garcia versus Davis. So I don't think we can close out this year with any more big fights.